In this video there's going to be more coding, as we're going to put all the values that are in column I under estimated of block time, and we're going to put these into an array. Also we're going to put all the values in column L into an array, and it's somewhat different from the code that you have written before to get these seeds numbers into these cells. So now we're going to have these values in a new array. And also we're going to put these values into an array, these percentages that we'll be using for the distribution array. And we're going to multiply these percentages with the values under the seeds array that we find over here in column L. But before we continue, there's something that we need to clean up first from the previous coding that we did. We need to leave some descriptive comments in our code. So I'm just going to go back into the Visual Basic editor here and leave some comments for the first section that we wrote. And the below section provides the time values in the worksheet, so that we have some sense of what our code is about when we open up this file again in a couple of months' time. At this point, we're not 100% sure that our code is without error. So at the first attempt, I don't want to go all the way until row 160,000 to run our code. I want to take it easy and maybe run the first 100 lines. So therefore, I'm going to work with a variable, and that variable is going to be the number of rows that I want to execute the code for. So for example, when I'm testing my code, I want to run it for the first 100 rows only and see if the code works. So my variable for this is going to be number of rows, and I'm going to get it from the user with an input box asking, please fill out the number of rows to run this code for. And that should give an input box when I run it. Let's see if this works. Yeah, there it is, my input box, and I'm going to cancel it now because it doesn't actually do anything at this point. And again, let's leave a comment here, asks the user for the number of rows to execute the code for. Now let's get ready to get our first array in. So let's switch back to the worksheet, pressing Alt F11. And this is going to be column I. So all the values under estimated of block time are going to be in our array. So this starts from row number 2 all the way down. So column I corresponds with column index number 9. So we're going to need all the values that are in row index number 2 and column index number 9, and then all the way down. Okay, so switching back to the editor. Let's start with announcing that we're going to use an array. So that will be our EOBT array. And we're going to use a date as data type. And notice that I'm not giving dimensions to my array because we'll be using this variable, number of rows. So at this point, I'm not exactly sure what the dimensions of my array are going to be. So later I'm going to use the redim statement to give exact dimensions to this array using my variable number of rows. So because I didn't give dimensions to my array at the beginning of my code, I'm going to redim the variable here, and it's going to be EOBT array. And now I can say that I can start from row number 2 until I hit the number of rows variable. And again, I'm going to repeat that this is a data type. And to get all my values into an array, I'm going to use a for loop again. So I'm going to say that I is to number of rows, and EOBT array, which is a one-dimensional array, is going to get the values from worksheets number 1, then cells, then I, because that's the value that it's going to loop through. And remember that I said that we're going to get the values from column index number 9. close parentheses, and then get the next I. So that seems to be okay. Let's put in this test code for EOBT array, and let's ask Excel to print value number 2 into my immediate window here. So now if I press the play button, so it first asks me to fill out the number of rows to run this code for, so I'm going to go with the first 10 rows. And notice that because I filled out the number 10, Excel now fills out the number 10 for my variable number of rows. So basically my loop went from 2 to 10, and I asked Excel to print value number 2, which is now printed as 0057. So that's hours, hours, minutes, minutes, seconds, seconds. Going back to the worksheet to see if that's alright, and it does say 0057 at cell I2. So that array works fine. So I'm going to comment this piece of code out by placing an apostrophe, because at this point we're not needing it anymore. So now I want to do the same thing to my seats, and these are found under column L. The letter L is the 12th letter in the alphabet, so that makes this column index number 12. And so pretty much it's the same thing as my previous array, as I'm going to get all these values that are in their column L from row 2 all the way to the bottom of the sheet. So let's put these in, and let's announce that I'm going to use a seats array. Again, that's going to be a dynamic array. We're going to give it dimensions later. So here I'm going to say redim seats array, now 2 to number of rows, a single, and similar to what we just did, I'm going to get these from the same worksheet. So that's worksheet number 1, and I'm going to get them from column number 12. And do the next I. So now I can change this piece of code to print seats array just for testing purposes, and it's going to print the second value, and it's going to print the first value of my array, because remember that it starts from row number 2 only. Okay, press the play button. So again, I'm going to run it for the first 10 lines. It prints the number 7 in the immediate window. Let's see if that makes sense. So in row number 2 under column index number 12, there is indeed 7 seats. So that array is also working fine. So in the meantime, let's do some cleaning. Leave comments here. And I'm going to say that this puts EOBT values that are in column index number 9 into an array. And I can copy and paste this description to my seats array. Seat values from column index number 12. Okay, and while we're still cleaning up, something else that I forgot to do is to give dimensions to number of rows. And that's going to be a single data type too. So remember that there's more data to put into an array, but this is coming then from the arrival distribution patterns tab. And we're going to put these values into an array. So all these percentages that are in row 16, starting from column index number 2 under B until the very end. And I know that these are 150 cells. for every 150 minutes that we have these percentages for. So going back to the VBA editor, we need to declare our new array. That's going to be distribution patterns. And note that this piece of code is not going to be using our next row variable. So we might as well give it dimensions right away. And I'm going to go for a 2-dimensional array from 1 to 4. And on the other dimension, I'm going to give it dimensions from 1 to 150 and set it as a single. And to get these values into an array, we're going to go through 2 loops. For I is 1 to 4, and for j is 1 to 150. So that's each and every 150 minutes of our distribution pattern array. And I'm going to say the distribution patterns, 2 dimensions, I and j, are going to come from a worksheet number 3. Make sure to write worksheets. Cells starting from I plus 15. So we're starting from row number 16, in fact. So I is 1 plus 15 makes 16. And from j plus 1. So that's for column number 2. Or rather column index number 2. So we're going to go for next j and call for a next I. So let me just explain why I oversized this array. So I gave it dimensions for 1 to 4 and 1 to 50. And let's go back to the worksheet to show you why I did this. So in fact, only this row is going to go into my array, starting from index number 2 and row number 16. But like I said, this is a distribution array for a full service carrier. So if you do want to add in additional distribution array for other types of carriers, then the code is already there for you to do so. So then all you need to do is put percentages here for a different distribution for a different type of airline. So later there's no need for you to change this code, and all you can do is put in the values in the worksheet. So this then becomes a full service carrier, and for example you could do a charter and a low cost airline here in this one. And these cells then get the percentages that are applicable to a charter airline. So that's why I for now choose to oversize my array just a little bit. I can now test my distribution pattern array by replacing this code, distribution patterns, and this is now a 2-dimensional array. So I'm going to ask what's in row 1, column 100 in this array. And press the play button, and notice that I'm getting a runtime error for an application defined or object defined error. And that's because we left our view in the arrival distribution patterns, but in fact we want VBA to work in the departure sheet. So we can fix this by adding some code at the beginning of our procedure and by saying that worksheets number 1 needs to be activated. And that will always activate worksheet number 1 at the beginning of our code, even if we're getting values for an array in worksheet number 3. So now if I run the code, please fill out the number of rows to run this code for. I'm going to go for 100 lines, and it returns the value of 0.008. And we can see if it writes from our worksheet. And so it's this row and then 100 cells to the right. So let me see what's in there. So we're getting to this column under CW, and it's 0.8%. So it means that this is 0.008 in numeric values in Excel. So this is also confirmed. Our array is working properly. So let's leave a comment here. Put distribution patterns in array, and let's put in a note to ourselves that we kept rows 2 and 4 intentionally unused. Alright, so what we just did is we put the values under column I into an array, we put the values under column L into an array, and we put these values into an array. We tested them, and all of them are working as we want them to. So for now, this is fine, and we're going to move on to the next video to work to the end result.